So time to get started. Let us dive into EB Printlab. I'm Fiona Napier, I'm Edmund Bell's International Sales Director, and I think the first thing we're probably going to do is introduce you to our designers here. In this session, really we're trying to give you an understanding of the breadth of possibility of Printlab, which is our custom printing solution. As you have probably heard in previous sessions, and as you will hear in subsequent sessions, a lot of our stocked range is about planes and semi-planes, but we want to have solutions for you for more design-led options in fabrics and contract fabrics, and that's what we're going to be presenting here. So after we've introduced our two designers, we're going to talk you through the three key ways you can use Printlab for your solutions. We're going to tell you about the selection of base fabrics that you can print onto, and then we're going to underline a little bit about how easy it is to do this process with us. So first things first, I think, Lisa, we're going to start with you. Can you just explain to everyone at home, what your background is with Edmund Bell and what your design specialities are?
I suppose, yeah, it was going to be textiles all the way for me, really, or certainly creative of sorts. I went to West Surrey College of Art and Design to study printed textiles, graduated with a first-class degree, and then sort of embarked on a freelance career for a couple of years, doing one-off sort of printing, etc., etc. And really, I suppose, tumbled into commercial textiles, and sort of over the next years gained a wealth of experience in sort of putting ranges together, traveling a little bit, buying, and working at product for domestic lines. Yeah. So coupled with that, and really latterly over the last years, working with a number of mills across the world, and with Edmund Bell, not exclusively here, but really certainly embedded as part of the team, to develop the sort of dim out, black out planes, working with Demis on the print side, and generally kind of forging a way forward with our sort of creative piece, really.
It's, this just a thought forming in my mind whilst you're talking there is, we have said our stock range has predominantly rested on planes, with obviously in the print binder number 3, you may have seen our presentation just prior to this that took you through all the new product and through the binders as they stand now, our collection. With the exception of the print binder and some of the stock paper ranges, it has been predominantly planes, and that's because the bulk of the meterage, the meat, if you like, for contract has historically been planes. But as we'll see, print doesn't just mean designs, it can mean textures. Sure. It can give you all sorts of solutions. And also at the same time, design-led fabrics more and more aren't just for a domestic setting. We're seeing more and more strident, crazy stuff happening in contract too, especially in hospitality.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And there's a wealth of ideas out there really to incorporate, within a print program, isn't there? I think. So yeah, it's an exciting part of the range. It's a small part of the range, but it's a very exciting part of the range. And I think that's what Printlab does for us. I know we're going to talk a little bit further about that, but Printlab really does endorse the creativity and the excitement, within room schemes, whether it be on the healthcare side or whether it be on the hospitality side. It's and the scope within the framework of this is tremendous, really.
Just two administrative points I'd forgotten to mention at the start, which might be relevant. If you're on a laptop or a computer, you might find it useful to click Gallery View in the top right-hand corner of your screen, and that will give you, I think, a side-by-side view of the presentation points and also us and our pretty faces. And the other thing to remember is if you do have any questions, then feel free to pop them into the chat, and we'll try to answer them at the end. And if not, we'll get back to you by email later on. But definitely, I imagine this is a relatively new process to a lot of people, so maybe we'll have some questions for us. So Demi, can you maybe do the same, explain a little bit about, where you came from design-wise, what you do at EB?
Yeah, so I've always had a passion for art and design. From being a little girl, I was drawing and painting, and then going to school, following my passion, doing art being my favourite subject, and then going to college for 2 years, studying art and design as well. That was quite good because you got a bit of variety of everything, like photography, graphics, textiles, and then in the final year I decided to focus more on the textile element. And then from there I went to the Bolton University and studied textiles and surface pattern design for 3 years, which I graduated with a first.
Very good.
Which is, yeah, very good. And then from there came straight to EB.
Talent spotted.
Yeah. And I was lucky enough to be employed straight away from university, which is really good.
And you've been a really important resource for Edmund Bell, I think, and part of a general process towards staff resourcing, some really new avenues.
And fully entrenched in the digital programme and the digital platform, which is the key really for the functionality of what Printlab does really.
And the speed of the process, which we'll speak about later.
Yeah. So from there, from coming to EB, I've had, we use AVA software CAD/CAM.
Yeah.
So I've had further training on that, so that's been great to learn the software in more depth and gain knowledge on things on some of the tools like Materialise, which is quite a big thing. So that's basically where you can map any design into a curtain or headboard or chair or anything like that, which is really useful.
For the end customer is super important.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I'm always sad. I'm a little bit melancholy listening to you guys talking about your backgrounds, because I always wished I was creative. But I find it hard to look at a design and then imagine this is what it's going to look like on a sofa, and that's where Materialise and that kind of process will really help a hotel owner, a care home owner, wherever.
I mean, this kind of facility is really taken like having an email these days.
Yeah.
You know, it's not rocket science. It's something that's happening on a day-to-day basis, isn't it? It's a little bit burdensome sometimes to do it, but the end result is fantastic, really. I think in terms of being able to show our customers
having the confidence that what having developed is going to be right for their project ultimately, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
So can we, I think important, you mentioned about the software that you're confident working on. In terms of the design skills, in terms of the kinds of techniques that you're most familiar with?
I'd say I've got quite a diverse hand painting and drawing techniques, because from doing like textures and mark making, prints and patterns, to more like detailed drawing and painting. So like, I think I prefer my passion is more like the detailed floral elements.
The painterly stuff.
Yeah.
And the orchids.
Yeah.
And things.
Oh yeah. So these are some of my favourites as well. So Demi is just showing an orchid design on the Luxor base cloth. So this is a beautiful velvet upholstery, and as you can see, it's a really high contrast design, right, Demi?
Yeah. It's really good for like engineered prints as well. So like a one-off headboard piece or something like that.
What do you mean by engineered print?
I think it's more like a bespoke, so it's made for that certain feature.
So you think things like blowing up a frieze, a floral frieze, if you like, for a headboard. Essentially, it's like
using a printed textile as a piece of artwork.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen that. I saw that a couple of years ago in the most I guess forward specific way that I'd seen it. I think it was in a Ritz-Carlton, maybe Sarasota, Ritz-Carlton, but they were literally using fabric stretched over canvas. It was a printed blackout, I think, stretched over canvas with an abstract design on it, and I thought that's so cool, you know. But equally, you can use a headboard, big space in the room, for a real statement.
Yeah. Or of course the feature chairs. You know, or a panel on a curtain. You know, all those sorts of places that you might want to bring a little bit of fun or statement, really, I think.
As big or as small as you like, actually, as well. Super. Okay. And in terms of what you've been doing at Edmund Bell since you started with us, has there been a particular way of working or a particular bent to that?
I think it's just being creative. Like, I've had the opportunity to draw and paint here, as well as be more focused on the digital side. So obviously creating the prints and sending them to customers and getting feedback and things. So I think that's been quite good.
And I mean, we will go over the process in more depth, but that's one of the things that I think is so nice. There's a few other companies out there, unsurprisingly, with digital print solutions for fabrics. We've kept our kind of marketing about the process quite minimal, because what we're trying to do is make it almost no effort to the customer, right? I mean, it's wonderful if you're a graphic designer of background and you have your own ideas and you have your own files that are in the right format, easy peasy for us. But a lot of the time that's not the case.
No.
It's an owner or someone who has a specific idea, colour or something in mind, and they have no idea how you would transfer that into a layered file and onto a piece of fabric.
And I think really that's one thing we'd like to encourage, wouldn't we? You know, is if you've got an idea, you know, come and talk to us. You know, however big or small, you know, however crazy, you know, the crazier the better. So, you know, we just love to be able to interact, get to know our customers. That's the exciting part of all of this, you know, get and really help them fulfill their briefs, and get entrenched in their projects, and you know, however big or small, I think would be the word. That's the message, the key message really. And you know, we've both got creative skills. We can both draw, we can both paint, you know. And the other thing is, you know, that this whole computer thing, it's so easy to facilitate an idea. You know, we've got,
you can back things back and forth quickly on PDF.
We've got things, you know, paints out on the floor, dib, scan it in, do something with it, change the scale.
Do a Zoom call with us.
You know, just experiment and be creative. There's nothing to stop you being creative in the digital route.
So this can work for a specifier, it can work for a contractor, but equally, if you're someone who keeps their own range, branded range, you know, like a small-time editor or wholesaler, this can be an excellent way of setting yourself apart, of having an exclusive range. And this is available to anyone now because there's no MOQs. So it's
and also let's add to that the healthcare side of the operation. You know, where you know we've done engineered runners for beds, you know, or engineered screen curtains for hospitals. You know, so there's all of the application within, you know, the other areas that we work across as well.
That's it. I mean, we'll go over the base cloths in a little bit, but they're fully technical contract fabrics. But you can have the design element as well. So Demi, you already did show us one of your high contrast floral designs. I know you have a couple more to discuss with us. And why would you choose these particular ones? What is it about them?
So these are the ones that I created from scratch. So these are actually my own drawing and paintings. So these are some that I did in university. So the inspiration for these came from Kew Gardens in London, where I visited.
Always wanted to go.
It's amazing.
It's not happened last year. I had it in my mind, but it's not happening.
Super.
So yeah, I started from scratch, got some inspiration, drew and paint. So I used watercolour paints to do these, and then I scanned them and manipulated them on Adobe Suite, so Photoshop, to clean the images up first, and then took them into AVA to put them into some sort of repeat, and also separated the colourways. So then I have like a layer for each colour, which makes it easier to make multiple colourways.
So do you want to explain layered files? I know, again, there might be some designers watching who know all about this, but the vast majority of people, like myself coming into this initially, have no clue how complex this is, in fact.
So each layer is a colour. So any colour in that design is made up of those colours. So a little bit, it could be part of the design might be a pink, and then part of it might be yellow. So it's literally like a layered file of all the colours in the design.
And the number of colours in that. So if it's something like your orchid, there might be a lot more 20 or 30 colours, for example.
And
so
then
each one has a layer.
Layers.
Yes.
It might be helpful, actually. I mean, we're going to explain that the way we work is through digital printing on paper and then transfer printing to the fabric. But in order to understand layered files, it might be useful for people to Google and look up gravure printing, right? Because there you can actually see the different colours being applied to a fabric as it goes through.
The only difference with gravure, of course, is that you were limited to 5 or 6 rollers.
That's true.
So when I first started out in textiles, it was what we called mini screening. So all of these layers that Demis is talking about were all painted by hand by an artist. So that's where where the skill came, you know. So the artist would recreate that particular colour on a layer, which would then be exposed onto a mini screen. And hey ho, if you had 30 colours,
and then the next.
If you have 30 colours, you have 30 mini screens. And that's how. So for those people that knew about screens, then the screens and layers really these days are synonymous, except for we don't use mini screens.
So I highly recommend looking up some of these processes. Dead interesting. But just to, you know, as you said, often your designs will involve literally hand drawing or painting,
Yeah.
then digitizing, then layering.
Yeah.
So this is a time, it's an expensive process in terms of time.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
yeah.
I think the digital route is a lot quicker, obviously, than Lisa was saying
Yes,
about
yeah.
the screen printing process.
Yeah.
So, and the beauty of this is that you can have as many colours as you like.
That's it.
So yeah, it's really.
And it also facilitates, you know, yesterday for some of those that joined us, you know, we talked about capturing the sort of abstract look.
Yeah.
You know, if you've got something that's got 30 or 40 colours and you need those 30 or 40 colours to make it look amazing.
Yeah.
You would struggle to have recreated that in a conventional route.
Yes.
You know, so the whole digital thing really
A lot
does
more
help
nuance.
us
Yeah.
really create and capture anything as super dynamic as anything you know people might want, really.
Super. Okay. Well, shall we? Have you got anything more to say about this particular designs that you were showing, Demi? Anything else you want to bring out?
There's one here as well that has been printed on. Grab it.
So I think, is that on Enigma or on?
It's on a textured,
it's on a
textured linen look
So
base.
there you go.
Yeah,
So this is one of them as well.
So, you know, what you were saying there about the subtlety, because there are so, you know, in those peonies, there's that many shades of pink.
Yeah.
And this is another thing to consider. Of course, our stocked base cloths are typically stocked in a white and optic white, to which the dyes are then applied. But actually, it's kind of exciting when you start printing on piece dyed goods, which is an option because we have many of the bases that we have are available piece dyed as ranges in the collection. And then you get some really cool stuff happening. I mean, this was a piece dyed article, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was more of an experiment,
Yeah.
to see how things would look on a tea stained, you know, like you say, you can change the tone of colours, you know, quite quickly by
Gives you that
putting
really
that-
antique look.
That's it.
yeah, which is great.
So let's talk about Printlab. Printlab being Edmund Bell's process for using custom printing, right? For making this very complex process very simple for you and very attainable for you. And I think there are probably three key ways in which you can use Printlab. One is the design library. The other is for achieving no MOQ special colors and textures. And then thirdly, it's full custom printing. Should we start with design library and just explain a little bit about what that is? So if you haven't already, definitely request access to our secondary website, fabric-hub.com. This is a multimedia platform that basically gives you access to thumbnail images, room images, text specs, certificates, videos, all sorts of stuff about our product. And in Fabric Hub, which Amy may just show you, I think, you also have a section about prints, and within that about Printlab. And you know, there's all sorts of information there, but one of the main folders is design library. So how would you characterize design library, Demi?
So design library is a library full of designs from different categories. There's, I think, 12 different categories or something like that, and there's a few hundred designs over the full thing. So that's a great starting point for some customers, so they can go in there and maybe want to recolor over a design.
It's like an inspiration library, isn't it?
So if they need any ideas, they can go there. They can recolor a design, and also I think not to forget is any of those designs we can upscale or downscale, which has a massive impact.
Huge difference.
On the design. So yeah, there's a lot of.
There's one that occurs to me that we've been showing a lot recently, and it's almost like roof tiles laid on the side, multicolours, beautiful texture, but whether that's tiny or giant is just a completely different effect. So multiple different categories, as Demi says, from abstract to ethnic to what else have we got in there? Florals,
geometrics, textures.
So the idea is you can use them as they are ready. You can have the scale, the repeat, the colour, anything you like changed about them. Or you can simply use it as a place to get a little bit of inspiration for what you actually want to request as a custom work. And we're adding things to it all the time. We're going to start, I think, social media posting about this as well, you know, a little bit like you just did, giving you a bit of your motivation and reasoning behind the design.
And also creating some mood boards, you know, it's a good place for us to to you know, put a design feature in there, link across our upholsteries. You know, put in, you know, suggested themes, you know, some on-trend things, some things that are a little bit more wacky that perhaps you wouldn't consider using and doing with that particular design.
You should.
You know, and you know that when you, a lot of our existing patterns, like, you know, Demi did mention, you know, well, a lot of our existing patterns, you know, you could give them a completely new look if you think, oh, that's actually quite nice, but you know what would it look like double size? You know, and we've seen there's some great new colours here on some of the existing patterns. Let's try some of the new colours. So it's a very quick way of getting to a result without going through the design process. So it's a great resource from that point of view, and a good place to start searching.
Any thoughts on what kind of you know, upcoming designs you expect to be adding? What's the next category that's going to get your attention, do you think?
For me, some of the more unusual things, you know, it's great. It's a great place for sort of what I would call fairly regular, but I think we need some of the slightly more on trend things. I think, don't we? That I think would really bring it to life.
So if you didn't already, definitely go back and have a look. Later on, we're going to be putting recordings of all these seminars onto fabric-hub.com, and one of them from yesterday was our discussion about design trends for 2021. So undoubtedly, some of these wacky out there things that Lisa's talking about will be included within those trends. So yeah, definitely interesting. So number 2, and I think also a very important way of using Printlab, and probably a way that people don't think about initially, is getting your colours right. So historically, our ranges have always been piece-dyed. Piece-dyed ranges require quite a large minimum order quantity, an MOQ, typically. So historically, that's been like 1,000 double width meters of blackout. Now that's only attainable for a really big project, and you know, and it also comes with a really long lead time because we've got to do the entire process of fabric. So you know, it's a specialist situation where you can do that. But I think with Printlab, you have a completely different scenario. You can have that special color, but there's no MOQ. And the lead time is only that of printing, really, and the design process itself, because we've already got the base cloths in stock. So absolutely, completely different scenario to before. What kind of references could you use to determine the colour? What would be useful for you?
Pantone references, brow references, even if they've just got like a piece of fabric that they like the colour of, they could send that to us so we can match to it as well.
Yeah, I mean the paper references, so the RAL and the Pantone, are okay to start with, and usually there's a customer interaction, so we go through an approval process, don't we? So, but undoubtedly, really, if somebody's very specific about colour, then a fabric chip, you know, the swatch is actually the best. Obviously, if things are going further afield, then you know it's a good place to start. Would be a Pantone. We can send them it would always be a fabric reference, wouldn't it? Once you've printed it out. So, but yeah, there's a number of ways.
We'll talk about the kind of the process and the approval process a little bit later. So you know, if you didn't have an actual fabric to hand, maybe something you could use would be one of our piece-dyed ranges. You could say, okay, I love hot pink lipstick in the Venus range, so have, you know, match to this, pretty please. We've actually had people send in paint chips. We get all sorts of things. And because there is approval, because there's customer interaction with the designers, that's all not a problem. That's all doable. We did talk about this just prior to this meeting. We were talking about what people might need to bear in mind as one limitation of transfer printing. So I think is essentially that if you have a full plane, there could be instances of contamination. Just
a lint, you know, lint or a thread or some dust or something.
Lisa, can you explain what transfer printing is so that they can understand, you know, why that might be an issue?
Well, primarily we print onto paper, so it's a sublimation process. So we print our pattern onto paper, and then through a heat press, we have a small heat press in the studio. Commercially, it's done on a cylinder. And so the pattern would then through a heat press, through the rollers, would then be transferred onto fabric. So if in a situation, so it might be a dusty mill, it might not be, you know, you might get a hair or something floating in the atmosphere, and if it's just a plane, I think, you know, it becomes a little bit more problematic, doesn't it? So
I think probably, I mean, you know, if it's a bulk order, if it's a larger order, it would fall within normal fabric tolerances. You're not going to get too much of that.
No.
If you're doing a really small order, and as we've said, that's one of the key benefits of fabric cones, that you can do small orders, then, you know, that's something that may be more of a problem, and that's why ideally you want to be looking more at texture than a complete plain.
Yeah, that's yes.
I
I think we would endorse putting the textured element onto the plain.
And indeed, the textures are really realistic now as well.
Yes.
You know.
Oh gosh, yes. Yeah.
I mean, so you see
textures printed onto our base cups, which look really good.
A lot of them you wouldn't know that they weren't really textured until you touched them.
Yeah. Yeah. And you wouldn't know they were printed often.
Well, exactly.
Until you'd actually got them close up, because they are so good.
Yeah. You know. We do have a couple of printed planes actually in our kind of.
We've got the whole chorus.
Yes, the chorus.
We've got the whole chorus range, of course.
Yes.
You know, which is a great place for coordination and upholstery.
And again, you know, those can be used as basis for different colours too, can't they? You could apply different colours. So actually, we've just been talking about how the heat transfer works. Can we watch this little video, perhaps, which will actually show a little bit of the process Demi goes through. And
so this is colouring, Demi.
You can talk
it's on the screen.
So this is actually going to work on one of these floral designs. And so this is just the sample print that we have in house here, isn't it?
So that's it, the ink printing onto the sublimation paper, as Lise just mentioned, and then the heat press.
So this is just a little sample heat press, and as we'll tell you shortly in the bit about the process of Printlab, this is one of the A3 samples that you can expect very quickly after agreeing the design brief. Right? It's the beauty. This is the absolute beauty of it, is the speed with which you can have a sample of exactly what you asked for on exactly the base you asked for. That's fairly unrivaled, I think. Okay, so last, certainly not least, in fact, probably most important, and certainly the way in which we've used custom printing the most, or Printlab the most, is full custom. So what does that mean? What's full custom?
So anything that the customer would want, whether
the craziest nonsense.
The crazier.
The crazier the better.
Or the simpler, as simple as you like as well, to be perfectly honest.
So any design that you like or have an idea, whether it's like a picture of something that they want on a design, we can do that as well. So we start with getting some sort of idea from the customer, and then we'll then make our own design. So we'll then put it into a design. So sometimes if, say it's like a butterfly design, I'll then go do some research, come back and maybe send the customer 2 design options which I've created. So just to give the customer an option. Something to work on.
And in the mix of that, we're also then starting to formulate repeat sizes. So that's an important technical part of what we're doing.
And how, I mean, in my experience, I think you've normally shown that on a PDF that gives them the repeat as part of the...
So the brief will show like the design, any selvage information, the repeat size,
how it fits on the fabric,
how it looks when it's
whether it's
printed.
150 or 40 or 300 or 280 or wide width.
So that might be important for example, the actual construction of the curtain, the chair, the bedspread that you're making out of this.
Whether it's railroaded or not, if it's wide width. So that's quite a good one to put on the brief, just so they've got all the information.
And there, you're looking for what's best aesthetically, but also what's best economically, aren't you? I mean, you're trying to take care of the customers. We're trying to fit as much of that design usefully onto the width of the fabric that we have set as you can. And use as much of that width as we can. So one thing I just want to touch on for full custom, we obviously quite often will get someone come to us and say, I want exactly this design. And they already have a design file. What we do have to pay attention to is copyright, of course. Right. So we do have a form that we normally require you to fill in if we're doing full custom, that basically relates to copyright. If you're giving us a file, either you need to have made it, or you need to have permission to use it. And then of course, if we make it for you, then we're setting the ground rules of the usage of the design. But we like to be really upfront and clear about everything. We can, of course, use an image you send us as inspiration for a new design. That's a different situation, and absolutely So the file formats that you accept, if they already have, the design ready, Debbie?
So the the best is to have AVA separated files, but if you don't have that, then a TIFF, like a high-res TIFF file or JPEG, or if you have a Photoshop file, then send that across as well, because sometimes they have the layers as well, which is good.
And then if you're creating a design, you would end up with an AVA file if it's been separated,
file.
and so that would then, I guess, would go to the customer if they needed it for whatever, but obviously we would retain that for commercial bulk printing.
And then I guess, you know, actually probably more frequently than that scenario, the customer probably will have nothing at all. You know, they may have an image, they may have a paint chip, they may have an idea. It might just be a description, you know, in wording. That's most likely, but most frequently that's how it is, in truth.
Interpretation.
You know, I would like Stripe, and that's also fine. We try to, at the first point, when you're talking to salespeople, we try to be as, I guess, in depth with our questioning as possible. We try to understand, firstly, what is the design you want? You know, what are the colour references and other references you want us to use?
And that we do have this we call it PL form. We do have this PL form that does help the salesperson just facilitate those questions, really, you know, so that we do have a decent starting point, you know, that helps get them, you know, exactly, you get to end point much quicker.
That's it. So what we typically want to know from you is, as much as you already know, you know, formulate your ideas as much as you can in terms of the size and repeat that you want, in terms of the coloration and references you're going to use. You know, do you have any files or pictures or anything else you want us to use as inspiration? Also, really important, you know, what's it going to be? That's really important, especially if you need guidance from us on what flame retardancy you require, what kind of, you know, other tech specs you require from the base cloth. So maybe it's going to be a chair, maybe it's going to be a chair back, maybe it's going to be a curtain or a bedspread or a headboard. Let us know about that. We like to know, ideally, the kind of amount you're expecting to use. So anything you can tell us is going to make it a really slick process. Is there anything more we want to say about custom printing at all? I think we'll talk about the process in just a second in terms of lead times, because that's probably important to the customer as well. So before we go into that, let's talk about our base cloth selection, because I did mention that we've got a fairly unparalleled selection of contract textiles to use. So I'm doing a base cloth card here. You'll find this in the print binder. You can also get it on its own. And this card basically shows, unprinted on one side and printed on the other side, all the contract flame retardant articles that we can print on. And there are single drapes, textured, untextured, bedding weight, single drape weight. You can use most of these for accessories as well. There are dim outs, there are blackouts, there are shears, and there are upholstery articles. Very shortly, we're going to be adding in this Luxor velvet that we've been going on about as well. So we have 17 different base cloths. Many of them wide and narrow width as well. So if you have really tall hotel windows, then our wide width dim outs and blackouts will be most suitable to you, for example. The back of the card also shows you all sorts of things about care instructions, suggested applications, flame retardant certificates, all sorts of good stuff. So,
and just to add to that, you know, base cloths is always an area that we're resourcing, you know, so we're always looking out for something new. You know, I think that there definitely is a new waterproof upholstery. Really nice textured waterproof upholstery, which is something that we've really been missing in the range. So that's in work. We're sort of getting to the end of that development, which is great. And looking at more thereafter. 2 of the 3 upholstery ranges articles that are already available as bases actually are EnduraCare Plus. So this kind of secondary brand that we use to denote upholstery articles that are waterproof, antimicrobial, they're stain resistant. So super interesting right now with all the technical USPs that
you could use them. You can use them on a chair seat in a care home, or you can use them in high-end hospitality with a gorgeous design of your choosing. So very, very fluid. So let's talk then about this process. Let's assume that it's full custom, because that's probably the most complicated, and yet not complicated. That's the beauty of it. You'll see on your screen we've got the logo for Printlab. Basically, this is a really short process for you. So the first part of this is, of course, as we said, please tell us everything you know about what you want. Ideally, the one thing I missed out there is what's your time scale? You know, when do you need to have these goods? How long have you got to play with design? You will be probably in full custom, you'll be having a bit of a discussion with our designers. So we need to understand what the time scale is for you. But you know, the beauty of this is that once you have come to a conclusion of what you want and you're happy and you're telling Demi, okay, yeah, beautiful, the colours are right, the scale is right, the base cloth is chosen seems to be correct. She does her work, a very complicated work. And within 3 to 4 working days, we are posting out a sample to you, which, if you think about it, is unrivaled.
Or sooner. We, you know,
we try to do.
We can do. That's at worst, really. It is quite straightforward if we get all the the information at the beginning.
Another thing we've not talked about here is the way that the Printlab pricing structure works. It's very transparent and very clear. We have pricing per linear meter or per linear yard, depending on where you are, for the actual goods. And then we have a couple of additional charges. One is for coloration. We have to make that separate to the linear meter charge because it doesn't depend on the number of meters. And then also design cost. And sometimes we apply this and sometimes we don't. But even when applied, you'll note that the design costs are not at all onerous. They're not at all, considering the amount of time that you're spending and what you would spend if you went to a graphic design firm. And the expertise involved, of course, in that work. And getting something that is completely exclusive to you. So at maximum 3 to 4 days later, we're sending out a sample to you. As you saw in that brief video, Demi will actually use the fabric that you chose. She will use the design that you have agreed upon, and you'll get an A3 sample, which is twice the size of a normal sheet of paper, if you like. So quite a decent size of sample that you can use as a kind of reference to the handle and the look that you're going to get. Now, really key is on small orders, under 100 meters, then we just proceed then to your production if you're happy with that. If it's a larger order, we do run a bulk sample, and that's because there can be a difference between sample printer and bulk printer. Why is that? Why is there potentially a difference in colour?
I think it's just a different printer. Obviously they'll use hopefully the same inks as what we do as well, which is good. I think its temperature can change as well.
There's a load of variables.
Just different. Subtle variables really, because it's only going through a heat press process. But I think it's just that is enough to change a colour or change the ambiance slightly. And if we have a customer that's very specific and rightly so, about what they're trying to create, then I think we just like to put this check in place really to make sure that everybody's happy, everybody's approved it, and we're ready to go with 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 meters.
Exactly. So at that point, obviously we will, either on the basis of the approval of the A3 or on the basis of the approval of your bulk sample, we'll then proceed to actual bulk printing. And normally, if we're not talking crazy huge orders, which we would like to have, then the lead time tends to be about 3 to 4 weeks for finishing all of these goods, because we keep the base cloth in stock. Hope that's it. I think Amy is telling me we might have some questions to answer, so that would be a really good time, I think.
Well, I'm not Amy, but
Okay.
If someone's asked if they create design for you to print, do they remain the owner of that design, or does it go into our files for using with other projects?
Oh, right. Well, it certainly doesn't go into our files for use with other projects.
No. If they've created it, the IP remains with them, categorically with them.
And that's that's what there's almost three options on the copyright sheet that we mentioned to you, and one of them relates to custom design developed for you, and it says exactly that. It's yours, and it will not be sold to anyone else, and it won't be featured on Fabric Hub.
No.
Exactly.
Next one is what widths can you print on? Could you do up to a 3 meter width?
Yeah, depending on the base cloth. So the previous session we were talking about new articles. We already have a load of the articles in the base cloth card that are double width. Some of them 280, 290, one or two 300 centimeters, and we've actually added another couple of single drapes in double width just recently. So yeah, you can get, there's I think Panama, there's a plain weave, there's multiple dim outs, multiple blackouts, and sheer that you can have in double width.
Have you done acoustic tests for the base cloths?
On the dim outs, yes. So Enigma and Venus dim outs are acoustically tested already.
Is it possible to get the sample book for the base cloths? I think you've already shown that. But...
The card, yeah, absolutely. So the card is nice because it shows printed and unprinted.
Yeah.
And that means you can see
The textures and things that are necessary.
and also in the light colours, you know, obviously on a blackout you're going to get a whiter white than you are on a dim out, because the base cloth is.
In colour,
So that's helpful. But we can, if you need bigger samples, we can give you a ring sample of all unprinted base cloths too.
Yeah.
And final one, if somebody wanted to pull some of our stock designs into their range,
Yeah.
Are they available to do that? Can they do
Absolutely.
Yeah.
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 Of course. Yeah. Well, yeah.
Even better, because the lead times there are significantly shorter even than our very quick lead times, because you know the paper is stocked, the designs are already ready to go.
Yeah.
And of course the other thing is, like we said earlier, if they like those designs but want to change them in any way, there's also the scope there as well to either change colours or change scale or change, you know, size.
Yeah.
So,
and in fact, it's quite nice because you can offer that to your customer almost. You can, you know, you can say, okay, with a slightly longer lead time, with a slightly different pricing structure, depending on how you want to do it,
Yeah.
you can have exactly this, or you can have any colour you like. And there is no MOQ, so yeah.
The final question, how do they get our new folders and binders and cards and things?
Write to us. So you can write to us at sales@edmundbell.com. You can give us a ring on our office number that you'll find on the website. There's any number of ways. In fact, on the website, you can actually make a little inquiry for samples. So definitely get in touch. You can send a little message to Adam and we'll get in touch after the fact and make sure you have the relevant samples. So thank you everyone for spending some time with us today. We hope that you're excited about Fabric Hub and Printlab and all the capabilities we have here now. And we look forward to hearing back from you for your custom design.
Yes.
we're looking forward to hearing from you.
And hopefully see you back for some later sessions today. Bye-bye.